Hi there and welcome back to another video. So I am always looking for ways to use my stamps and coordinating dies creatively since it's an investment to get both. So today I thought I'd share more on the setback stamping technique. Setback stamping is where you stamp an image, then you use the coordinating die to create a window to go around the image and raise it up with dimension. So the stamping is set back a bit. I have lots of examples for you today, so hopefully it'll inspire you to give this a try with whatever supplies you may have. So let's start with this card here first. I'm using a new stamp set from Waffle Flower called Spice Garden. This is a beautiful set, and although it's really supposed to be spices, I just used it as a plant. So I colored it however I wanted to. Now I like that the Waffle Flower stamps come with these nice pockets where there is an area in the front for the stamp set and an area in the back for the dies, and these are super durable. You can actually buy these pockets separately too. So I have this one stamp here and the coordinating die, and that's what I'll use on this card. I'm also using a sentiment from the Waffle Flower Always stamp set. I really like the sentiments in this one, and for this card I'm using the sentiment that says, "I wish I could hug you." So here I'm kind of planning out where I'm going to do my stamping. Now I'm using a MISTI stamping tool today simply because it's very helpful with this technique, but you don't need to use one if you don't have one. In the MISTI I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card, and I've lined up my stamps. I'm inking it up with a Gina K Jet Black Amalgam ink. This is a Copic friendly ink. It's actually Copic friendly, colored pencil friendly, watercolor friendly. So it's a good all around black ink. I stamped it on the note card and also in the exact same place on a pink piece of cardstock that was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So the stamping is on both of these things in the same exact spot. I'm using my trimmer to cut out a portion of this pink panel. I only want a little sliver to go across the front of the card. And then I will use the coordinating die to line up with the plant. And I'll run that through my die cut machine. This will create the window that will have our stamping set back behind. Okay, so now I want to create a piece of Crah Foam that can go behind these pink pieces so they have dimension. You could use foam squares, but there are some small little areas and it's easier to do it this way. So this is a piece of white Crah Foam. I'm using the coordinating die to also cut from that. This Crah Foam will die cut nicely, but you want to give it a few minutes to kind of get its shape back after you run it through the machine. So I set it aside for a few minutes. Now on my note card, I'm doing some quick Copic coloring. I decided to go with green leaves with little pink tips. This is kind of a made-up plant. In my mind, it reminds me of the coleus that I have in my garden, but I just wanted to have some simple, soft coloring. I'm just speeding through the coloring because my coloring isn't anything fancy, and I wanted to focus on the die cutting technique. Okay, now my Crah Foam is ready, so I am going to trim down the piece so that it's a little bit smaller than our little pink panel. So this is going to be cut perfectly to go behind this and give nice, even raised dimension. Now to glue the cardstock to the Crah Foam, I like to use a liquid adhesive or strong double-sided tape. In this case, I felt liquid adhesive was much easier. So I'm using Gina K Connect adhesive. And I'll put the Crah Foam behind this pink piece, and then I'll put something heavy over it while it dries. I happen to grab my iPhone. Okay, so now we're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm just holding the pink piece lined up with the Crah Foam, trimming off the excess, and then we can glue these pieces together also. And at this point I was giggling because it looks like that's the profile of a witch's face. Doesn't that look like it with a long nose? These are the things I see when I'm crafting, I don't know. So I'll glue that down. Once these have dried together, I can go ahead and add them to my card also. There are also a few nook and cranny little pieces that go in between the leaves of the plant. So I put down the little Crah Foam piece first and then the cardstock on top. And this really helps to complete the look. Now we're putting adhesive onto the Crah Foam, and we can line this up right onto the card. I use a combination of the grid lines in the background to make sure it's straight. And also I just make sure that the die cut edge lines up nicely and close to the stamped edge on the note card. And here you can see our stamping is set back and the die cut window is raised up. After that dries, I can trim away the excess Crah Foam. I wanted to add a little interest to the leaves, so I used a Stardust glitter pen just to draw little veins, or whatever those are called, into the leaves here of my imaginary plant. And that will catch the light when you tilt it. Next, I'm using my Holtz Trimmer, which is my favorite trimmer right now, to cut super thin strips of black cardstock. I'm going to glue these onto my note card right above and below the pink panel, just for a defined edge. I thought this little pop of black would really make this card stand out a bit more. So I put a tiny bit of liquid adhesive on the back of the cardstock strip, kind of rubbed it in with my finger so it wouldn't ooze out when I put it down onto the card, and then lay it right into place. So you can see I made these go right up to the edge of the stamping also. So here's the completed card. You can see the stamping is set back and the die cutting is raised up thanks to that Crah Foam that we put behind it. And also that those little thin strips of black cardstock added a lot of interest to the card. You could also use a black marker to draw those lines in if you wanted to. Okay, my next example also is of set back stamping. However, this time I'm using multiple images and we'll put a mat around our raised area. For this card, I used the Waffle Flower Little Painter Stamp Set. This is such a cute set with lots of paint brushes. You have a paint palette, paint bottles, and cute little critters that can hold all of these pieces. But I decided to just use the paint brushes on today's card. For this sentiment, I used the Waffle Flower Rainbows Stamp Set. I thought the one that says, "You color my world," would be perfect for these paint brushes. This time I'm starting with a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card, and also a piece of white cardstock that's cut smaller. And I'm tracing that smaller piece right into the center of our note card. Now into the center of that note card, I'm going to stamp the You Color My World image from the Rainbows stamp set. And I'm using my MISTI Creative Corners to make sure I get it straight. So I'm stamping with my black ink right onto that panel. And now I can start doing my brushes. So I lined up the brushes where I want them to be, and I'll stamp right onto the panel with black ink. Then I can remove that little white panel and stamp the same images onto the note card. So they'll be positioned in the exact same place. Now I'm going to move it up and do the same thing. Put the little panel back in place, using my pencil marks as a guide for where to place it. Then I will arrange some paintbrush stamps hanging off the bottom of the card. Stamp those with black ink onto the panel, and then I will stamp them again directly onto the note card. Doesn't really matter how you stamp them onto the panel because we will die cut them out, but if you stamp them nicely, you can save those die cuts for another card. Okay, so now we have our two pieces and you can see they line up nicely. Okay, so on to the note card. I decided to make it look like there's paint on these paint brushes. So I drew little black lines to look like paint on each of the brushes. I then colored them with my Copic markers, nothing fancy, just bright colors. Now onto the panel, I am taping in place the coordinating dies so we can die cut them. But at this point, I decided I wanted a black mat around this piece. So I'm gluing my panel onto a black mat. I have my dies taped there because I didn't want to take them off. But now you can see how it stands out a bit more with that black around it. So now when I run it through my die cut machine, it cuts not only through the white panel, but the black mat too. The dies will cut through both, and there you have the windows for our paintbrushes. Now this time I decided to use foam tape just because I wanted to show you don't have to use Crah Foam if you don't want to. And I added that right on top, and you can see the stamping is set back behind the coordinating die cut windows. I used a shimmer pen on the handle of the brushes, and then I put Tonic crystal glaze onto the paint part so that it would have some shine and dimension. So here is the completed card. You can see the shine on the paint brushes, that black mat around that raised piece, and that all of our stamped images are set back behind the coordinating die cut windows. So this is just a fun way to get more out of those stamps and coordinating dies. If you don't have coordinating dies, you could fussy cut the windows. It would be pretty easy on simple stamped images like this one. Okay, my next example shows just another design variation using the setback stamping technique. I wanted to show you several ideas so you can kind of get your creative juices flowing. For this one, I'm using the Waffle Flower Hip Hip Hooray stamp set. I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card in my MISTI, along with a gray panel that's a little narrow from the note card. I'm stamping the image and the sentiment with black ink onto the gray panel, then I can remove it and stamp it onto the white note card. This will definitely be the easiest of the different card options that I do, and is a great way to keep a main image kind of the focus of a card. I use the coordinating die to cut out from the gray panel, and you can see it fits nicely around it. Then I decided to cut just a little section out of the gray panel, just for some fun, but you could leave it together if you wanted to. I used the coordinating die to also cut from a piece of Crah Foam, and now I'm gluing the Crah Foam right behind the gray panel. I again chose to use Crah Foam here instead of foam tape, since the edges of this die cut are pretty intricate. It's easier to die cut the Crah Foam to go behind it than to cut tiny little pieces of foam tape to fill in those little areas. So once I have the gray panels adhered to the Crah Foam, I can go ahead and add them to my card. Very easy to do. I did some basic Copic coloring for the little hippo image there, but you could color these any way that you want to. I did decide to add tiny little white trims against these little cut edge here. You see that little cut edge by the hippo's feet and hands? I did thin strips of white cardstock, used a little liquid adhesive, added the thin stripes in or strips in. Once it's dry, I trimmed it off with my scissors, and I just felt it gave a more defined edge to those gray panel pieces. I had originally planned to do just a white pen line there, but it kind of got lost on the light gray cardstock, so the dimension of the cardstock strips I felt helped quite a bit. There you can see how nicely the Crah Foam is behind that gray, and you have your image set back behind the die cut window. Okay, so now I wanted to show you that you can use this technique to create a background. I've kind of filled my background here, but you could cover the whole background if you wanted to. I again used the Waffle Flower Always stamp set. I thought these images are so much fun. And I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. Put that in my MISTI and arranged my images, stamping a bunch of images with black ink and part of my sentiment. Now I have a piece of white cardstock that is just slightly smaller than my note card. I centered it right onto the note card, and I'm stamping the same images with black ink on that. And then I stamped the word "you" with an acrylic block and just put that right under the word "missing." Sorry my head gets in the way a few times here. I just wanted to line things up nicely. Here on the panel alone, I lined up the coordinating dies and cut those out. And then I did coloring onto the note card. So I just did some basic Copic coloring, same colors that I used on my first card. Put foam tape behind this. I could have used Crah Foam if I wanted to, and then glued it right on top. So here you can see the images set back. I like the look of using white cardstock both for the front panel and the note card. I think it gives a nice classy look. Okay, now this next card was dictated by Lila. She chose the images, the sentiments, and the colors, so I wanted to include it in the video. For this one, I'm using the Waffle Flower Bouquet Builder. I like the unique style of these flowers and decided to just use the one image, really bold coloring on the front of my card. I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card, and also a piece of purple cardstock that's cut smaller. I'm holding that purple cardstock centered on the note card, and I will stamp the flower onto the purple. Then I will remove the purple and stamp the flower in the same position on the white note card. You can see how having a stamping tool is very helpful for this technique. If you don't have one, just start with your note card and your panel the same size and stamp in the same place on both. Then you can trim down your panel to line it up. I used a black pen to extend the stem of the flower off the edge of the card, and then I did my quick Copic coloring. Again, nothing fancy, but there are the colors up there on the top if you're interested in doing the same. For the sentiment, I used this Waffle Flower Sunshine stamp set. I really liked the sentiments on this one and decided to go with Wishing You Sunshine. That's one that Lila liked too. And I white heat embossed that on the purple cardstock piece. I used the coordinating die to die cut from the purple cardstock and also from a piece of Crah Foam. And I glued those together and then glued them onto the note card, lining up the die cut edge with the stamped edge. I used a Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen to add some shimmer to the flower. And there we have our completed card. I did stamp the same image on the matching envelope too. So you can see again, this large image is kind of set back from the die cut window. And I also like that the image kind of hangs out from that purple piece. So it just kind of pulls the whole card together nicely. Okay, my last example is a little different. In this case, we have our stamping on the inside of the card, and the die cut windows show the images on the front of the card. So the same technique, but just a few little changes. I'm using the Waffle Flower Gym Rat stamp set. These little critters are so cute, and I thought it'd be fun for a party card. So I have put a bunch of these little critters into my MISTI along with the sentiment. I have a piece of craft cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm stamping the images along the bottom of this. Now on to a white note card. So this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card. That's the same size as the craft, but it's a note card. I'm going to stamp the same images in the same place. I don't need the sentiment on this one, so I remove that. So I stamp the little critters along the bottom. Now this note card I'm going to flip inside out. So I had stamped it on the outside, but I just flipped it, so now that the critters are on the inside of our card. Okay, so I did cut my craft panel down a bit, but I'm going to glue it right along the bottom of the card, so my critters are in the same place on the front of the card and on the inside. Now I'm using the coordinating dies and taping them around the images. I'll open the card up and run this through my die cut machine, and the dies will cut through the front of the card and the craft piece. And there you can see the little critters lined up inside. I wanted the bottom of my card on the front to be a little shorter so that the white on the inside would show through, so I trimmed a bit off. Then I added a thin black cardstock strip right above the craft cardstock piece, right up here for a little definition, a little trim. And then I added another thin black cardstock strip to the inside of the card, right up against the edge of the front. So you can see it lines up nicely. And it looks a little bit nicer from the front and the inside because of the black cardstock trims. So I added little star stamping on the inside and outside, and I colored my little critters with Copic markers. And there you can see how I used this set back stamping technique to add images inside of my card that show from the front. This is something fun that you can do with any stamps and coordinating dies. So I hope you'll give this a try and hope this inspires you. If you're interested in the supplies I use, they are linked below in my YouTube description. In the middle are a couple other videos you might like. And if you haven't done so, please head over to my blog to find more information. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great week.